Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today we talk about the development of reading skill. But before we start that, we'd go for the review of the previous lesson. The previous learning that we did in the previous session was about listening skill. As I said, communication skills are a very important part of study skills. So far we have done 2 language skills as a part of this course. Number 1, listening. Number 2, speaking. Since speaking skill was covered in 2 sessions, the previous session was on public speaking. In the previous session, I talked about what is public speaking, what can be the purposes of public speaking, 7P approach to public speaking, how to organize public speaking. I tried to explain with the help of 7P approach how by taking care of different aspects such as people, purpose, place, etc. of what we are concerned with, what we are preparing for as public speaking, how we can be efficient public speakers. In terms of organizing public speaking, I also talked about a few ideas how by careful planning a person can deliver a good public speech. Informative and persuasive speaking was discussed, and the issues how to manage the difficulties related to it were also addressed. Further, purposes and tactics for informative and persuasive speaking were talked about, details were given, and with the help of examples, I tried to add some clarity to your concepts. In the previous session, I also talked about audience analysis. By audience analysis, what I meant was, how do you use your audience to know what you should talk about and how you should handle that? It included feedback from the audience as well. I tried to give you some tips on how to maintain the attention of the listeners and how to come over the public fear that you have related to your public speaking. Dear students, in today's session, we would talk about reading skill. Today's session will cover the following aspects. Number 1, what is reading? With that, I would move on to the importance of reading in the modern world. Things that we read. This will be the next part where I would talk about what are the general areas that we deal with when it comes to reading in our daily lives. What are the common reasons for reading, and what are the varied needs of readers in different contexts, in different situations? These areas would also be addressed. Further, I would talk about the reading process, where I would try to share with you, with the help of a chart, a diagram, how when a reader reads something, he or she does the process of reading and what activities are involved in that. With this, I would come to the definition of reading skill. I would talk about reading skill or reading sub-skills. I would also discuss different reading strategies that are considered important by different researchers and linguists. The rest of the part of today's session would be very much relevant to you, where I would talk about important reading sub-skills and habits that you can use as efficient readers in your everyday reading, especially with relation to your academic reading. So my dear students, to start with, I would try to define for you what is reading. I think you would agree when a young child, a very young child who has just started going to school, and you ask the child, what are you doing right now? If the child is sitting with a book in his or her hand, the child might say, I am reading. And actually, if you look at the book, you would realize the child is reading alphabets that are given. Another young learner, a teenager, with a novel in his or her hand, if you ask, what are you doing, would again use the same term and would say, well, I'm reading a novel, I'm reading. For recipes that are to be used in a kitchen, the mother might be reading a recipe. The dad would be busy in reading newspaper. Reading instructions from the cover of a medicine bottle might be one of the tasks of the mother as a part of everyday chores when the medicines are to be given to the children. There actually is a lot of reading involved in our everyday life than we generally consider. Here I am going to share a formal definition of reading with you. Reading is more than seeing words clearly, more than pronouncing words correctly, more than recognizing the meaning of isolated words. Reading requires to think, feel, and imagine. If you focus on the definition, you would understand that reading in itself is a complex and complicated process. It does not only mean to see the words clearly or the ability to decode words. It also is not limited to pronouncing words correctly. Rather, it is something more than that. If I say that when you read a word and you understand its meaning, actually understanding the meaning of a word in isolation, that is separated from other words, is not the only thing that you do when you read. You try to contextualize that. This process of contextualization, this process of understanding the meaning of a word in the context where it is given, is actually a very important part of reading. That is why when that says reading requires to think, feel, and imagine. Thinking, of course, is more an intellectual activity. When we say feeling, it means responding to reading. Remember, reading is a language skill. Reading is a communication skill. And as I said earlier in my previous lectures, all the communication skills are interactive skills. Skills where we interact with other people. Much as when we listen to somebody, we respond actually to the person. In the same way, as we read something that is written by somebody, we are actually trying to respond to that. This is what here the use of the word feel means. And the last word in this definition, imagine, actually gives us clues about the possibility of reconstruction of meaning by the reader as he or she reads what the writer has written. Dear students, what do I mean by imagining when somebody is reading something? Well, you would agree with me that when you read a story, when you read about a particular character in a story or a particular event or happening that is narrated in the story, your interpretation of that varies and differs from the interpretation that is given by somebody else. It means you try to interpret it in your own context, with all the fund of knowledge that you have, with all the previous learning that you have, with the kind of person you are, with the kind of background that you have lived in, with your reality of existence as a context to that. Actually, you are able to interpret a certain meaning about whatsoever is said in relation to a particular character or an event or a happening in a story. Because your observations, your experiences, and your life is different from the other person's observations, experiences, and complete life actually, that is why your interpretations are different from the other person's interpretations of that. So in the light of your experience and in the light of your fund of knowledge, you actually try to imagine the characters, or you try to imagine how something happens or what happens. This is what I mean when I say the reader, an efficient reader actually needs to think, feel and imagine. Well, talking of the importance of reading in the modern world, I would say new methods of copying and printing have not only added to the bulk of books, magazines, newspapers, journals and reports, but also they have made possible the flood of information about every conceivable topic under the sun and beyond it. The expansion of printing has consequently added to the importance of reading in the modern world. Not only in the field of education but also in the entire walks of life, one has to read a great deal. As far as the scope of reading in our lives is concerned, well, I think the scope of reading in today's world is far bigger, far huge than it has ever been before. Reading also is the best utilization of leisure time. However, reading is not limited or restricted to the utilization of leisure time. Reading may be one of the inexhaustible pleasures, but the importance of reading is far more than that, and it is far more rewarding than just rewarding of leisure time. It offers much more than mere entertainment. This is what I would say. It provides an individual the opportunity to expand his or her horizons by helping him or her to identify, extend and explain deeper understandings of the self, of other human beings and of the world. Somebody said, if you want to live more than one lives, read. Why? Because, my dear students, what I would just like to share is most of the learning in our lives takes place through two things. One, experience. Other, observation. Well, what is the reality of our lives? Not more than a grain of sand, not more than a speck of dirt, I would say. If lost on the oceans of times, maybe we cannot be found again. So with this little an existence and with this little a scope for exploring the universe and whatsoever is provided by God in this world, maybe experiencing everything is not very much possible for us. So most of our learning comes through observation. And by the way, what is observation? The experiences of others. So books provide us a chance to learn about observations of others and experiences of others. By reading about them, we experience all that they experience at different stages and in different ways at different steps of their lives. What are the common things that we read as laypersons? Well, we may read novels, short stories or fiction. We also have the possibility of reading non-fiction, textbooks, travel books, encyclopedias, etc. Another range of materials that are generally read by people are newspapers, journals, magazines, maps, directories, dictionaries, etc. Sometimes we have to read forms, applications or questionnaires. In the same way, many a times in our lives we come across materials that are from the category of brochures, catalogs. We also read hoardings, we look at the advertisements and read them. We come across notices, labels, posters, displays at airports, railway and bus stations, etc. Sometimes we also have to read letters, reports or proposals. There might be a long list of other possibilities of materials that we come across in our lives as we read. I would like you to take a minute and to sit back in your chair to think for a while what are the common things that you read? Try to generate a list. Try to add to the list that I have created here for you. Well, dear students, with this we move on to the purpose of reading. As a matter of fact, different linguists, researchers, and people who have worked in the field of communication skills, they have given varied lists of purposes of reading. However, here I have a very focused list of various purposes of reading. Sometimes we read for some specific information. Well, sometimes we read to pass an exam. I guess in case of most of you, this is how it is. Sometimes reading is a pastime. We read for the simple purpose of passing time. Another purpose of reading is to know details of something. So, to have some information, to know some details about something, we read. Sometimes we read to have an overall idea of what is given in a reading text. Or, in other words, I would say, sometimes we read just for a general idea. There are many more reasons for reading. After all, why do we read? What I have tried is, I have shared here another list that provides a slightly different perspective on the purposes of, or the reasons of, why do we read. Number 1, we read to comprehend the main idea. Number 2, we read to follow directions. Number 3, we read to increase general fund of knowledge. Well, I stop here at this point and I go back to the first point, to comprehend the main idea. Can you think of any reading situation where you have read something to comprehend the main idea? I guess in case of your text lessons, you would have read some of them just to comprehend the main idea. Coming towards number 2, point number 2, to follow directions. What can be an example of reading for following directions? Well, at the outset of the lesson, I gave the example of a mother who would be reading some instructions or directions from the cover of a medicine bottle, because she has to follow those instructions to give medicine to her child. Can you think of one more example like that? Okay, then we move on to the next point, that is to increase general fund of knowledge. This kind of reading is actually most of the times a part of your layer reading. Sometimes you read to solve a particular problem. How often you have Googled on net to find a particular solution to a particular problem? Well, if you're a girl, maybe you would have tried to find a solution to remove a stain of ink from your shirt, and you might have Googled the particular solution that it would have offered. If you're a boy, maybe just to fix the heater that is out of order and that you have at your house, maybe you would have looked at some solution that would be given somewhere on Google, or you would have skimmed through a book to find out some solution, and you would have read that particular solution that would be applicable to solve your problem. What about solving mathematical problems? Yes, that is another possibility. With this, I move on to the next point, that is to form an opinion. Sometimes we read to form an opinion. What do you think would be the best example of this? Maybe you follow up a couple of newspapers to form your opinion on a particular political, religious, or social issue. As far as the next point is concerned, that is to check or verify certain facts. I think one of the everyday life examples can be when you buy something and you are given a receipt by the man on the counter, you just look at it to verify the facts. The facts that include that the items that you bought are presented there or are written there in correct form and number, and that the prices that are added are correct. And of course the totals that are done, you check them as well. The next reason of reading in everyday life can be to appreciate the viewpoint of others. If you are reading a book on philosophy, or if you are reading a book on sociology, or if you are reading a novel, maybe you are reading it just to know the other person's point of view, to have some knowledge of how the other person thinks. Even a newspaper can be read for that purpose. What would you say about the editorials that are given in the newspapers? Yes, sometimes we read those editorials to appreciate the viewpoint of those particular authors. Students, sometimes we have a reason to read, that is to predict an outcome. So it is more like you read to guess. Maybe it would be a wise guess or a wild guess that what would be the result. In the same way, in academic reading, you can read to criticize, to summarize, or to review. I hope you would agree so far through your academic life, you would have frequently come across activities where you have to critically examine, to summarize or to review what you have read as a lesson or as a text in your course. And finally, I would say sometimes we read purely to enjoy the music of words. It is just to enjoy the beauty of words. I think poetry would suit best to be given as an example in this case. With this, I move on to the next point, and as you can look at the slide, it tells, here I am going to discuss varied needs of readers. My dear students, we as human beings are different from one another. We are not only different, we have different types of activities. We live in different contexts, we work in different contexts. That is why our needs for communication are different. Once our needs for communication are different, it also implies that we have varied needs as readers. Look at the examples. A lawyer needs the ability to read well, to skim through an article, pick out important ideas, and make deductions from passages in order to prepare for the case he or she is working on. Compare it to a factory worker's situation and his or her needs as a reader. A worker in a factory requires the reading skill to read and understand the basic rules, safety signs, and changes in regulations, etc. So the needs of people, as I have given these two examples, they vary. What about the needs of a student? For academic purposes, you have a different set of needs as readers. Try to think of the reading needs of other people. I would also suggest try to generate a list of a varied range of reading needs of people in your surroundings. If you are able to generate a list of a dozen of variety of needs, I think you have done well. I hope by so far you are clear about what is reading, what is its importance in our daily lives, what are the purposes that generally we have for reading, and what are the varied needs of different types of readers in different contexts where they read. With this, I bring you to the next point, that is, reading efficiently means what? Well, reading efficiently means understanding pages of print accurately, rapidly, and enjoyably. My dear students, this is a very precise and brief definition. All the three aspects that are mentioned in this definition are of great significance. The process of reading involves a lot, and reading, actually good reading or efficient reading, means reading accurately, reading rapidly, and reading enjoyably. Well, what do we mean by reading accurately? As I said earlier, reading accurately does not mean only the ability to understand and to decode letters or words. Reading accurately also does not imply only the ability of a reader to understand the meanings of certain words. Rather, reading accurately means recognizing and understanding the meanings of words in the context where they are given. Reading rapidly. What I am referring to is speed reading. Efficient reading is always speed reading because it enables you to save your time and to have more output in a lesser time. And finally, and for me more importantly, efficient reading is enjoyable reading. Reading that you are able to enjoy. Remember, if the fun of reading is gone, you would not be able to get as much as out of the reading text as it is possible otherwise. Here on this slide you can see a chart where through a diagram I am sharing with you reading activities performed by skilled readers. If you look at the chart, we would start from the bottom of the chart. Look at the circle that is given at the very bottom of the chart. What it mentions is identifying letters. So at the low level processing, where a skilled reader can become automatically aware of the letters that are mentioned, this is where this cognitive process, this mental process of understanding letters begins. This is the initial step, the first step in the process of reading. The arrow shows the movement upwards. The second circle here gives us identifying words. So in the process of reading, as the reading activity is performed, the reader initially is able to identify letters, and then the reader is able to identify letters in combinations, in groups, in organized meaningful groups that are called words. The next step is that the reader is able to determine what words mean. You can look at the third circle from the bottom. You would see it is mentioned here, determining what words mean. And finally, in the lower half of this diagram or this chart, you would see the last arrow refers to the fourth circle that says performing syntactical analyses of text. Do you understand what does it mean, performing syntactical analyses of text? Well, syntax means organization of words on the string of a sentence. So this is the structure of sentence. सेंटेंस में कौन सा वर्ड कहाँ पर आएगा, किसकी जगह कहाँ पर होगी, किस तरीके से हम सेंटेंस में वर्ड्स को अरेंज करेंगे. This is what syntax deals with. Syntactical analysis, analysis by the way is a plural of analysis. Analysis का plural analysis होता है. So this is a comparatively higher level in the basic level processing, where the reader is able to process, to perform some analysis on the syntactic level, जहाँ पर reader को ये समझ आती है कि sentence में the words are organized correctly or incorrectly. So if For example, a sentence is written like, up the ladder he climbed. You would notice that the syntactic order is not correct. Words on the string of sentence are not organized properly. So the reader would immediately identify that sentence is incorrect. But if it is written like, for example, he climbed up the ladder, so the reader would identify how the pronoun he is followed by the verb climbed, etc. और वो किस तरह से कौन सा word कहाँ आना चाहिए था और वहीं आया है, and how the syntactic structure of the text conveys a certain meaning और उससे क्या sentence का क्या मतलब निकल रहा है. I hope you would be clear about the low-level processes that take place during a reading activity that is performed by a skilled reader. Then you would notice that the lower part of the diagram, with the help of an arrow, gives way to the upper half of the diagram, where you would see a circle at the center surrounded by 5 smaller circles around it. This central circle says, determining text meaning and using text in thinking. अगर आपको याद हो, at the very outset of today's lesson, when I was trying to define reading for you, I said reading requires the ability to think, feel and imagine. So you would have noticed that the thinking process, much of it was being done at the lower processing level as well. This thinking process is continued in the high level processing of materials while reading, जहाँ पर the reader is trying to determine text meaning. अब as a whole पूरा text का क्या मतलब है, what does one particular sentence mean, what does a whole paragraph mean, and then how all the paragraphs in a particular text, let's say it's an essay or a story or an application or a letter whatsoever, so within that how different paragraphs, when they come together, how they add to the meaning. आपने देखा होगा ना, अगर एक पैराग्राफ को हम एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट से निकाल के if we place it in isolation तो उसका मतलब और होता है, लेकिन जब वो पिछले पैराग्राफ या पिछले सेंटेंस के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में लिखा जाता है तो उसका मतलब कुछ और होता है. That is why it is said that the real meaning is to be interpreted in the context. So at the higher level of processing, the reader is able to process the text meaning and is able to use the text in thinking processes, which means the reader is able to critically analyze, examine, review, etc. And you would notice that this higher level process is presented with the help of this central circle that is surrounded by 5 more circles, 5 smaller circles. What is given in these circles? Let us see. Starting from the rightmost corner, inferential processes, problem solving, analogical reasoning, prior knowledge, and strategic reading activities. Well, what does inferential processes mean? The term inferential processes means the reader is able to infer meanings in the context of what is said. For example, if the reader reads a story or a text in which some dialogues between the husband and wife are going on. For example, the dialogues go like this: husband, and remember this is the early morning scene, the husband is getting ready to go to the office. The husband says to the wife, so say, husband, quickly get me a cup of tea. Wife, oh, the milkman hasn't come yet. Husband, I have a meeting at 8 today. Wife, well, I'll drop the children at school. Husband, I guess you'll have to. Okay, so if this kind of a dialogue a reader comes across in any text, the reader would be able to infer certain meanings in that context, what is happening. The reader would be able to infer that because The wife needs milk to make tea, and the milk is brought by the milkman. Since the milkman hasn't come, when the wife says to the husband in response to his request, can you quickly give me a cup of tea? The wife says the milkman hasn't come yet, which means that she has not been able to make tea. And when the husband says, I have a meeting at 8 today, this implies, and the wife says that she would drop the children at school, this implies that the husband has an early morning meeting today, and though generally he drops the children at school, today the wife would drop them. So you see, the ability to infer additional meaning that is not directly given in the context, this is what inferential processes are. These inferential processes involve pragmatic inferences as well. The second small circle says problem solving. Dealing with a text and exploring it to solve some problem, applying the issues of some problem in relation to the text and try to find some solutions. This is what problem solving means here. Analogical reasoning, analogies are comparisons. So through using analogies and using reasoning, by comparing and contrasting and by establishing rational links between things, the reader is able to infer more meanings from the text. And in all this process, as it is written on the left side of the diagram in the second last circle, prior knowledge. In all this process, prior knowledge plays a very, very important role, and the user of I would say rather the reader of a text who is performing high-level processing activities through reading would be able to use his or her prior knowledge, that is the knowledge that he or she already has about something, to interpret a text. And finally, the leftmost circle says strategic reading activities. So using different strategies for reading in a more efficient way. Reader on a high level processing in reading activities would be able to identify for himself or herself whether he or she needs to use skimming or scanning or review or preview or telegraphic reading, etc., according to the purpose for which he or she is reading a particular text. My dear students, I would also like you to notice that in the upper half of this diagram, all the smaller circles are linked with the bigger circle with the help of arrows. Please notice the two-way movement or two-way direction of these arrows. This two-way direction or two-way movement of these arrows is very important because, for example, if you take the example of strategic reading activities, it is not only that for exploring the text the reader applies strategic reading activities as a high-level process in reading, but also these strategic reading activities help the reader explore the text. So you see, all these processes are two-way processes that are very well indicated with the help of these arrows. I hope I have added some clarity to your concept about how reading processes take place and how reading activities are performed by skilled readers. With this, I take you forward to the definition of reading skill. I hope so far as we discussed reading and the processes of reading, you would be clear about what reading skill or what reading skills are. Reading skills are specific abilities which enable a reader to do what? To do the following things. To read the written form as meaningful language. Number 2, to read anything written with independence. comprehension and fluency. And thirdly, to mentally interact with the message. The message here means the text that is written by somebody as a message for you, that is written as something that you would read. Before I go on to explain this slide, my dear students, I would like to share with you that sometimes the term reading skill is used with a subcategorization of sub-skills. Sometimes reading skills, the term reading skills is used for all those sub-skills as well. So do not get confused with that. You may call it reading and then reading skill and then the further categorization as reading sub-skills, or you may call all these reading skills that are a part of the overall package of reading skill. Here on this slide, I'm going to share with you some important reading sub-skills or reading strategies. I would like to say that different linguists, different researchers and people who have worked on communication skills, they have provided different lists of reading sub-skills and reading strategies. I have just given a set of important reading sub-skills here on this slide. The first reading sub-skill mentioned here is prediction. Number 2, skim reading. Number 3, gist reading. That is knowing the main idea, reading for main idea. Number 4, scan reading or scanning. Intensive reading is number 5. Whereas number 6 is inferring meaning, ability to infer meaning. And finally number 7, as it is given here, is extensive reading. However, I would say this is not an exhaustive list of reading sub-skills or reading strategies. A lot of sets of or lists of reading sub-skills are available on different websites, in different books, in journals, research articles, etc. Dear students, here I have provided you with another list. You would see this is a more comprehensive list. This list has actually a lot to do with the kind of reading that you are supposed to do. So considering your needs as readers, as academic readers, I have presented this list here. This is a list of the sub-skills of reading, those sub-skills that a good reader or an efficient reader develops as a habit. So you might call them sub-skills or you may call them habits, but basically what I intend to share is that this is the set of skills or sub-skills that a good reader, an efficient reader needs to develop. These are the habits that a reader, when he or she has them, he or she would be a good reader. Let us have a quick glance at the list. The list has 14 items here. Number 1, reading for thought, telegraphic reading. Number 2, reading with purpose. Number 3, analysis of paragraphs. Number 4, interpretation of title. Number 5, visual aids. Number 6, recognition of punctuation. Number 7, skimming. Number 8, scanning. Number 9, efficient use of memory. Number 10, eye span. Number 11, avoidance of regressions. Number 12, avoidance of finger pointing and subvocalization. On number 13, we have the sub-skill reviewing. And finally, critical reading is on the list. Well, do not worry, I would explain each one of these in detail. I would try to give you some examples. I would also present some activities here, so that with the help of those activities you are not only clear about what do I mean by a particular sub-skill, rather you would also be able to know how you can inculcate it as a habit in your own life, and how you can become an efficient reader by adopting it as a habit. Dear students, if you look at the slide, you would notice that the first 5 skills I have mentioned in blue color, whereas the rest of the sub-skills or habits that I want you to inculcate in yourselves as efficient and good readers, I have mentioned them, I have pointed them out here in black color. There was a purpose of this color coding. Actually, since this each one of these is to be explained in detail and examples are to be given, it is not possible to deal with all these in the current session. So what I have done is the first 5 sub-skills, that is reading for thought, telegraphic reading, reading with purpose, analysis of paragraphs, interpretation of title, and visual aids. I have defined, explained, and I have given some examples. I have also created activities for these in the current session. The sub-skills from 6 to 14, that is from recognition of punctuation to the last one, that is critical reading, they would be addressed in the next session. So, focusing on the first 5 sub-skills, we would continue with today's session. Before I start with the definition and explanation of the first 5 sub-skills in the current session, I would also like to mention that the following 5 sub-skills out of the set of the 14 skills that I have presented on the previous slide, these 5 sub-skills are very, very important, and they need more elaborated and detailed activities for learning how to apply them in your studies, and how to use them as distant learners for your efficient reading and for your better performance in your studies. That is why these 5 particular skills I have decided to deal with each of these as a separate session. So, skimming, scanning, efficient use of memory, analysis of paragraphs, and recognition of punctuation. These are the 5 areas that I would deal with separate, each one of these as a separate session, and I would do elaborated and detailed activities on these with you. However, as part of reading sub-skills set, in the current session and in the next session where I would be presenting all these 14 sub-skills, I would introduce you to these as well, and I would give you some basic information about these. With this, I move on to the first sub-skill, that is reading for thought, that we also call telegraphic reading. A good and efficient reader must develop a habit of distilling and extracting from the words the nugget of thought which the author is trying to express. In this connection, telegraphic reading is helpful. A telegraphic reader sees all the words, but his or her brain learns to discard or disregard all of them except the keywords and the word combinations which are important. The words and the combination of words which give him or her the thought of the author. So, telegraphic reading or reading for thought means only focusing on the keywords or the combinations of words that actually convey the basic thought of the author or what the author wants to convey to the reader. For example, look at these three sentences. It rains. Only a two-word sentence, very precise. Look at the second one. It is raining at this moment. And look at the third one. The clouds have opened and their showers are watering the parched earth. If you compare all the three sentences, I hope you would actually agree with me that each sentence is expressing the same thought, that is, it rains. And it depends upon the reader how he picks up the words from each sentence that reflect the thought of the author. So, for a telegraphic reader, in case of the first sentence, the sentence itself is very brief, very precise, so it's very easy to read. But when it comes to the second sentence, comparatively longer sentence, the trained telegraphic reader would be able to focus on the words raining this moment. So the combination this moment and the word raining would give him the clues that it rains. The third example is far more complicated as compared to the second example. The clouds have opened and their showers are watering the parched earth. What I have done is, here if you look at the bottom of the slide, you would see I have color coded some parts of the sentence. A trained telegraphic reader would be able to quickly pick up these four words: clouds opened, watering earth. These four words that are presented in red color give a clear indication of what? It rains. So, reading for thought or telegraphic reading is the ability to just pick up the crux of it, the nugget of it, the basic idea, the basic thought that is presented by the author. So my dear students, instead of getting the habit of trying to see and digest, comprehend and retain every word that meets the eyes, a reader should form the more efficient habit of selecting the words which convey the thought clearly and economically. The reader also must remember, sometimes rules of structure in language and rules of structure in writing require more than a telegraphic representation of thought by the author. What I mean by this is that sometimes, according to the genre, according to the type of writing, whether the writer is writing a novel or a short story or a prose essay or a letter, again whether the letter is formal or informal, etc., the writer does not have the freedom to go for telegraphic representation of thought, which means just by giving the basic thoughts, the writer cannot present the idea. Rather, the writer has to wrap it in the thick clothing of, I would say, words. But a reader is free to use the telegraphic reading technique to read efficiently and quickly. Here I have an example of telegraphic reading for you. Before you start as a telegraphic reader and you start developing it as a conscious habit, I would like you to look at this example. Please read this paragraph. The paragraph says, every book has skeleton hidden between boards. Find it. Book comes with flesh and clothes, all dressed, not asking you to be impolite or cruel. Do not undress it or tear flesh to get at structure. Read with X-rays eyes, essential part of first apprehension to grasp structure. Well, if you look at the paragraph and if you count the words in this paragraph, they would be ranging somewhere, I guess, between 50 to 60. Well, this is a telegraphic view of the paragraph. The original paragraph was like this. Look at it. When you look at the original paragraph, you would realize the paragraph is far longer. For example, every book has a skeleton hidden between its boards. Your job is to find it. You can see the use of slash marks to cross out certain words from the text. These crossed out words are actually they are representation of the words that telegraphic reader would skip while reading. So a telegraphic reader, when would look at this text, his or her trained eye would look at it in this way. Every book has skeleton hidden between boards. Find it. So you see, within this, how many words are skipped? Within these two small sentences, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 words are skipped. If you count the words of this original paragraph, you would find them around 100, and you would realize that almost 30 to 40% of it is reduced. I would take you to the previous slide. Look at the previous slide. Look at the telegraphic representation of the paragraph, where additional words are removed, words that do not convey thought are removed. So, by developing a conscious habit of focusing on the content words that give you the basic ideas what the text is about, you can actually not only develop a habit of getting the nugget of thought, the basic idea that the writer has presented, but it would also add to your efficiency of reading, and of course it would add to your speed of reading as well. With this, I take you onwards to the next point, that is reading with purpose. I would like to say that in general, impatience is one of the worst weaknesses among readers. The sight of a black print on a white page incites in a reader an immediate and irrepressible desire to begin reading. So basically what we do is we just jump into the sea of words, but such a reader takes no forethought, nor does he or she analyze his or her aim or purpose in reading. So actually, before you jump into the deep waters, you need to ponder for a while, what is your purpose of the jump? What do you want to get? If you know the purpose of your reading, it adds to the reading efficiency. Well, we do not just read, we read always for a particular purpose. Probably no type of reading illustrates quite so well the various purposes for which we read than does the reading of newspaper. While reading newspaper, the purpose for reading, that is from to extract information, to get facts, to form opinions, or to get delight, etc., changes almost as rapidly as the reader moves from column to column or news to news. Well, I would like you to take a minute's break here at this point. Just get hold of a newspaper, spend a few minutes looking at different news, moving from one column to the other. After that, put the newspaper aside, sit, have your notebook, try to enlist what was your purpose of reading for each news, or when you were moving from one column to the other or from one news to the other, how the shifts or changes in the purposes of reading were taking place. Try to generate a list by working on 6 to 8 news in this way, because I think it would add some clarity to your concept about reading with purpose. About the habit of reading with purpose, I would say to forethink and pre-decide the purpose of reading is a good habit, as it enables the reader to select the appropriate reading methods which will best achieve that purpose. Recall the activity that you have done with reference to looking at the different news and moving from one column to the other on a newspaper as you are reading for different purposes. Now think for a while, if you had those purposes as forethought and pre-decided in your mind, did your strategies for reading particular news or particular columns in the newspaper vary? I believe you would say yes. Because when you read particular news for some specific information, you would scan that news. You would just go to pick up those basic parts of the news that or the part of information that you need. Let us suppose it is about the arrival of some foreign prime minister to your country. You want to check when is he coming and when would he go. So you would skim through the news. You would scan through the news to find those dates, the names, and information about where he would come, the place. If your purpose of reading for a news item is entertainment or delight, for example, if you are reading a news about some celebrity or some showbiz personality, you would read it with a different purpose. In that case, you would not use scanning, for example, because looking at only particular points of information would spoil the pleasure of reading that news. So selection of appropriate reading methods becomes very easy when you pre-hand know what is the purpose of reading a particular text. I hope you are clear about the first two sub-skills of reading, and you would try to develop your habits where you can use these sub-skills as efficient readers. With this, I move on to the third sub-skill of reading, that is analysis of paragraphs. Well, having an eye for paragraphs is very important for a reader. It is one of the first signs that you really know what you do, what you want to do, or what you do with your reading material. People never notice paragraphs while reading, whereas paragraphs, of course, have a purpose. Paragraphs are placed there to make reading easier for you. What is a paragraph? Paragraphs are units of writing, and within a paragraph there is usually one sentence which states clearly the meaning or the main thought of the paragraph. This is commonly called the topic sentence. The topic sentence gives you the main idea about the sentence. So, having an eye for paragraphs is an important reading sub-skill, and if you develop it as a habit, it really enables you read more efficiently. In order to crack a paragraph, a reader should develop the habit of, number one, looking for the noun or pronoun that dominates the paragraph. I repeat, the first task for a reader when he or she wants to crack a paragraph is to look for the noun or the pronoun that dominates the paragraph. That helps you know what the paragraph is about or whom the paragraph is about. After finding the dominant noun, locate the sentence within the paragraph that makes the most generalized statement about this noun. That sentence will be topic sentence. So this is a key how to identify your topic sentence. I would like you to apply this to an activity where you would learn more effectively how a topic sentence can be found. Let us see. But before we do an activity on that, I would like to share that an efficient reader must also develop the habit of noticing the size of paragraphs while reading a printed page. You see, there are some paragraphs that are larger, that are bigger in size. There are some paragraphs that are shorter, that are smaller in size. And actually the size indicates a lot of things. Actually, these paragraphs are the cells of thought within the body of the text. Each of these paragraph units represents a basic structure. Each, according to its form, will determine what the characteristics of the corporate whole will be. So, the nature of a paragraph would give you clues about the nature of the text. The type of the paragraph would guide you in understanding in a better way the type of the whole text. If the paragraphs are large and apparently well developed, one might expect that the author will present a main thought and then will expand and elaborate it, exploring all of its implications. On the other hand, if the paragraphs are shorter, squat and skimpy, the thought is also skimpy, meager, thin, and certainly not so well developed. Thus, if a reader develops the habit of sizing up the paragraph, he can know how the author will spread his thought upon the page. There might be a question in your mind: how do you know that the sentence that you select really is the topic sentence? There is a very simple way of checking that. There are certain steps that you need to follow. Step 1, read the sentence that you think is the topic sentence. Step 2, then immediately ask the question, what does that mean? Step 3, read each of the remaining sentences of the paragraph, but preface the reading of each one with the words, "it means that." Which means every new sentence that you would read in the paragraph, you would add "it means that" before it. Follow the reading of each sentence by rereading the main sentence. By doing so, you will discover the relationship that every other sentence in the paragraph has to the topic sentence. Let me show you how. Again, the paragraph that I have given here is color coded. The main text of the paragraph is given in black color, whereas within parentheses, within brackets, in red color, the instructions are applied. The paragraph begins, "Man has always had tendency to make himself comfortable." Well, what does it mean? It means that man has the tendency to make himself comfortable. Okay. This inclination is man's nature. This inclination in man's nature is first seen in the earliest records of the care. Because man has always had a tendency to make himself comfortable. Man learned to use fire, and in so doing he found a substitute for the warmth of the sun. Because man has always had the tendency to make himself comfortable. The same proclivity to become comfortable led him to wrap himself in the skins of animals, because, of course, man has had tendency to make himself comfortable. So you see, we reach the conclusion that the main sentence or the topic sentence of the paragraph is, man has always had tendency to make himself comfortable. The rest of the paragraph is actually an explanation on that. It is an expansion of the same idea, and all these sentences are supporting sentences for the main assertion that the writer has made in the first sentence, that is, man has always had tendency to make himself comfortable. You may apply this technique to some other paragraphs, a few more paragraphs. If you work on them in the same way, I hope you would be able to identify how we can judge whether the sentence that we sense as the topic sentence is correct or not. Dear students, the next sub-skill that I am going to talk about is title or recognition of title. The author puts a title at the head of what he or she writes to tell the reader something. So do not ignore the title. It has a meaning, it has a purpose. And what that purpose is? To tell the reader something. And what is that something? What the entire piece of writing is all about. In a few words, the writer presents for the reader the whole domain of what he or she is going to read. By developing a habit of exploring the focal point of the author's thinking by means of title, a reader can explore a piece of writing more effectively. So, do not ignore the title. Try to recognize, understand and absorb it. Try to decode it, because it gives you clues about what the text says. While looking at the title, one should think of its implications. Attention must be focused on the most important word in the title. For instance, if there is an essay on the responsibilities of a good citizen, an efficient reader will be able to determine the focal point of the essay by means of the title. The essay is primarily about the responsibilities, not a good citizen, because responsibilities is the word that is foregrounded in the title, that is given at the beginning of the title. However, I would say be careful. Be careful, because some authors use titles merely as red flags to attract the attention of the reader. In that case, you need to be vigilant that the implications of the title may not be what you think. With this, I come to the fifth and the final sub-skill that I would discuss in the current session, that is visual aids. Okay, so what I would say is reading material is usually illustrated with the help of different types of graphic aids. Sometimes you have pictures, sometimes you have maps, graphs, drawings or diagrams that accompany a text. And actually these pictures, maps, graphs, drawings or diagrams are sometimes literally worth 1,000 words, because what a lot of text, a lot of amount of words would not be able to say, a simple picture or a diagram or a drawing would convey that. These visual aids present a wealth of material at a single glance and often without reading a single word. So, while reading something, if it is accompanied with some visual support, with some visual aids, some pictures or graphs or tables or diagrams, please do not ignore, do not simply forget to look at these visual aids. Use them, have a glance at them. A single look at them would help you understand the text itself in a far more efficient way. In each graphic portrayal, information of some sort is being spread before the eyes of the reader, and I would say the habit of casting a glance at the visual aids in connection with a cursory inspection of the text can give the reader much advanced information on the ideas and thought areas that are presented within the text. So use visual aids as a support for yourself. Develop a habit of exploring them before you really read the whole text that accompanies. My dear students, with this we come to the end of today's session. The summary of today's lesson is presented here. Today's lesson was on reading skill, and in today's session we studied what is reading. I tried to define, I tried to give you some examples, then I tried to set the preamble of the whole session by giving you the importance of reading in the modern world. I shared a list of things that we read, and I also asked you to try to generate a list of things that you read in your everyday life. Further, I shared reasons for reading, different purposes of reading I presented to you, and I tried to explain those. In the varied contexts of readers, I explained different types of needs that readers have for reading. Then we came to analyze the reading process, where I tried to show you with the help of a diagram how different activities take place in the process of reading, how at the lower level processing and the higher level processing during reading, at different stages, at different steps, different processes of reading take place, starting from the basic recognition of letters, moving onwards to the identification of words and then phrases, and then understanding their meaning in the syntactic context. We moved on to the comparatively higher level processes, where we saw how the understanding of the meaning of a text and its interpretation is actually a two-way process, where we apply a lot of problem solving strategies. We also use some strategic planning of reading techniques, and we use our background knowledge, etc., to interpret the text. And in this two-way process, the text addresses those issues as well. When I introduced you to reading sub-skills and strategies, I shared with you a list of important reading sub-skills and habits. I also explained that only 5 out of those 14 sub-skills will be covered in the current session, and the rest will be covered in the next session. So far we have covered the first 5 sub-skills of reading that I presented in a list in this lesson. I hope you have enjoyed the activities that I have shared with you. I also hope that you would do some practice so that you gradually develop a habit of reading in a far more efficient way by applying these sub-skills in your daily academic or non-academic reading contexts where you read anything. Thank you very much.